Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar about secondary packaging. I love the title of this one, Reducing Impact Beyond the Primary Pack, because that's exactly what we are going to be talking about today. So we'll get into it more, but in case this is your first time learning about secondary packaging, it's the material used to group bundles of primary packages together. And as you might imagine, it plays a key role in waste and cost and product protection. So we are going to spotlight in today's webinar some innovative approaches to reducing the environmental impact of that secondary packaging with our experts here today from B&B. I definitely want to thank our webinar sponsors. WPA has sponsored our whole year's worth of webinars, so thank you so much for their support. And then B&B is sponsoring today's webinar as well. So let's get into it as folks are trickling in. As usual, I will start with some welcome and announcements from PSC. The bulk of our time will be with B&B. We'll hear all about secondary packaging from them. And then as usual, we will have time for audience Q&A at the very end. In case you are new to the Pet Sustainability Coalition, welcome. We're so happy to have you. Also, if you're not new to Pet Sustainability Coalition, welcome to you as well. We're also happy to have you. My name is Allison Reeser. I am the Director of Sustainability and Innovation here at PSC. And the picture that you see here is of our team at Super Zoo just a couple of weeks ago. And I wanted to start today's webinar by just thanking the pet industry for being so cool. I have conversations all the time where we're deep into sustainability innovation and how can we save the planet, and then we show pictures of our pets. So there's just a lot of joy here, and I thank you all for contributing to such a lovely industry. But anyways, we are a nonprofit based out of Boulder, Colorado, but we work with companies worldwide in the pet industry all along the supply chain. And our whole vision is to make this industry even more thriving and collaborative through environmental and social positive impact. We do that in a couple of different ways. We support individual companies one-on-one. You can think of us like projects and consulting partners. But then, of course, a lot of the issues that we're trying to tackle are not solvable by one company. So we facilitate collaboration and try to bring the industry together. We talk about this industry transformation in a couple of key ways: ingredients, packaging, and responsible business. So today's webinar, of course, is going to be a little bit in that packaging side, but it's part of a whole picture. So today's webinar is part of a series, as I mentioned. The whole series is sponsored by WPA, but we do have individual webinar sponsors available, like what B&B did today, which we are so thankful to have you. Quick announcement that some of our upcoming webinars we're very excited for. The next one is about optimizing co-products and byproducts, which is a really important topic for the pet industry. So please join us on September 10th for that. And then later in October, we have a webinar about PSC's packaging pledge. This was an initiative that is ending in 2025, so we will wrap that initiative up and talk about what's next in 2026. A few additional announcements. APPA is doing a webinar featuring PSC, and that will air on September 4th. So please mark your calendars for that one. And then also important, if you are an accredited company with PSC, your last call to get a booth space in our sustainability pavilion at Global Pet Expo in 2026 is August 31st. That's over this weekend. So our sustainability pavilion was really successful last year. We're so excited to be able to do it again next year. So please join us in that section. And if you have questions about how to do that, please reach out. Okay, my last announcement is just some Zoom housekeeping. Welcome again to everybody who has been trickling in. So there's a couple of buttons on the bottom of your screen. If you want to use the chat feature just to say hello, where you're coming from, maybe add an idea of something that you heard. If you want the rest of people to see that, just drop your ideas there. We will also be dropping in some links in the chat, so keep your eye on that. If you would like to react to something that you heard, please use that little react button. I've already seen some of you use it, which makes me feel really seen and loved because I can't see your faces. So go ahead and use that react button to give a thumbs up or a heart. We love seeing that. And then most importantly is the Q&A. So this is where I will be facilitating our Q&A with our speakers at the end. So if you have a question that we would like to address in the webinar, please drop it there and not in the chat. Okay. So before I pass it off to our speakers, I just wanted to make sure it was extra crystal clear about what secondary packaging is, because this is something I have learned more about as we have been preparing for this webinar. So the primary package is what is holding the product. So if it is pet food, it is whatever material is actually in contact with that pet food, keeping it safe and sound for its delivery to the end consumer. The secondary package is something that is around that primary package. So sometimes it's a box that holds a bundle together. Sometimes it is some plastic that we will talk about that holds several primary packages together, something like that. And then it's also important to separate that from tertiary packaging. Tertiary is when a bunch of those different bundles, a bunch of primary packages are stacked on top of a pallet for bulk shipping purposes. So again, for today's topic, we're going to be focusing on that secondary packaging, which, fun fact, is sometimes seen by the end consumer and sometimes not. So that kind of plays a role into why this is really interesting. And I wanted to share too that this really matters, even if it is not seen by the end consumer. There is a lot of material that goes into the secondary packaging. It's a huge market. It's really, really important. So I'm excited to pass it off to our experts very soon to get into it. So speaking of which, we are so excited to welcome B&B Packaging Technologies today. This is a machine manufacturer that specializes in two main areas. So first is the secondary end-of-line packaging systems and bag and pouch making equipment. My other fun fact about B&B is that they joined as PSC members earlier this year, and they have just dove right in and they're super engaged. So I'm very thankful to have them. So Tom and Derek, if you would like to join me on screen, I'll give you a little introduction. So Tom Morsheimer, he is the sales manager with B&B and has over 25 years of experience in innovative solutions for flexible packaging. He's an expert in closure technology, which is super important. And some of his other focus areas include consumer convenience, poison prevention, and sustainability, all super important. And then our second speaker today from B&B is Derek Gonwa, Managing Director. He is bringing 14 years of experience in flexible packaging, both primary and secondary, and an expert in customer onboarding, plus a bunch of success stories in cost savings, runtime efficiency, and sustainability as well. Also, I'll throw in that when we were preparing for this webinar, they described themselves as machine guys, which I really appreciated, but they also know a lot about material. So we're going to be talking about both of those. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I am going to stop sharing my screen. And while we do, we're going to have an audience poll pop up. Because while we're switching screens, we would like to know a little bit more about how everyone here today is thinking about secondary packaging. So are you using shrink bundling, stretch bundling, corrugated boxes, reusable secondary packaging? Also totally fair if you don't know or if this is not applicable to your product. So please take a few seconds to let us know. And Tom, if you want to start sharing your screen whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thanks, Allison. Thank you for the intro.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
And it
Also,
looks
thanks.
like, oh, go ahead. Before I disappear, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. So hopefully you can see the results. It looks like most people here today are using corrugated boxes, but also some shrink, also some stretch, some reusable, and some not applicable. So we got a pretty good spread.
Great.
Okay,
Great.
Over to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Allison. Yeah, so I'm Tom Morsheimer, sales manager for B&B Packaging Technologies. So today we're talking about secondary packaging, and Allison already gave us a great intro to what secondary packaging is, and basically secondary packaging is that intermediary or that operational packaging that's needed to facilitate the efficient and safe distribution of products from point A to point B, primarily from the manufacturing site to the retail point. So if we look at just sort of a top level view history of end-of-line packaging, you could really say that end-of-line packaging or secondary packaging has sort of been on a sustainable path since its birth. It really has a specific purpose. And if you look at the innovations over the last 100, maybe 150 years, I mean, corrugated paper goes back to the late 1800s. And then you have things like shrink bundling and film starting to be used in the 1960s and then into regular use in the 1980s. Um, every time that there's been sort of an addition to secondary packaging, it's really because it's cheaper and it's lighter. So I mean that aligns with sustainable goals about reducing materials and finding less expensive ways to get the job done. In more recent years, there are some reusable solutions that do get used in the marketplace. They're only really effective when they make sense from a cost standpoint and from a logistical standpoint. But for most consumer packaged goods, generally you're going to see some type of flexible packaging or films being used or corrugated boxes. So, over the last 50 years or more, this area of packaging, it's highly commoditized and standardized, and there's not a ton of innovation that goes on in this area. And we could easily say that this is the way it's always been done, which can be a dangerous perspective to take on this, because it really doesn't help to drive innovation and help to drive towards a more sustainable atmosphere. So, when we look at sustainability initiatives, I mean, the pressure has been increasing. I've been in packaging for over 25 years, and I would say that sustainability sort of started in conversations more as a buzzword, and then over the last 10 years, it's really turned into actionable things that retailers and brands and suppliers and consumers are really want to see actionable items and things that can be impactful um, to creating a more sustainable environment and moving more towards away from that linear economy into the circular economy. So from a retailer standpoint, secondary packaging is a hot button item for them. And really, it doesn't matter if you're a small mom and pop shop or if you're a large retailer like Walmart, secondary packaging is by far the single biggest contributor to operational waste for retailers. They're the ones typically, unless you're into a club store or something like that, where these packages will remain bundled for some of these big box stores. Retailers are the ones that have to deal with secondary packaging, and so it's an important topic for them, and it's an area where they want to see movement in the marketplace. Consumers, again, secondary packaging really doesn't, it's really not seen by consumers for the most part. But consumers, especially younger generation consumers, they're making a lot of their purchasing decisions around, the sustainable work that the brands that they want to buy, that what they're doing. So it is something that can somehow be attached or measured when it comes to consumers and their purchase decisions. And then, of course, regulations, EPR, extended producer responsibilities. This is emerging. We're seeing a mixed bag coming primarily from states that are developing their own legislation and programs around packaging and plastic waste. And secondary packaging, it's included in that. It would be considered covered packaging, or in a lot of cases, it can be considered single-use packaging because it really it does only get used one time for the most part. Again, there are some reusable solutions out there, but generally those are not financially viable or logistically viable in the larger sense for consumer packaged goods. So when we look at the sustainability hierarchy, the best thing that we could possibly do is just to eliminate it. And I wish that was something that we could do across the board, but it's just not feasible in most cases. We need to have packaging. We need to have robust packaging. We need to have performance packaging. We need to have value-added packaging. So it's just, this is just a reality that we have to deal with. So the next most impactful thing that we can do to try to get, to try to support sustainable initiatives and move to more of that circular economy thinking is to reduce. And that's really what we intend to talk about today, is areas where we can reduce. So as I mentioned, secondary packaging it's relatively standardized for the most part. You have corrugated boxes where you can use flexible films. So what can we do to move the needle, to try to get more value out of the secondary packaging process and the materials that we use? So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Derek to talk about, what are some of the opportunities, specifically on the flexible side of things, that can be done to really move the needle and reduce material consumption and optimize those materials for the best possible outcome.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Thanks for the introduction as well from the team at PSC. So there's lots of different ways to get your product from your production facility to the Walmart or to the consumer. So we talked a little bit about secondary packaging, corrugate, shrink bundling, stretch bundling. It sounds like a lot of people attending this do some of it, or maybe all of it, or every type of it. So, and certainly every product has to be a fit for the product. Certainly, there's some products that just can't be put into film, or would have to be in a box, or vice versa. So traditionally, pet food bags are done by shrinking the film around and going through a heat tunnel. So I'm going to talk about the differences in some of our technologies that we're seeing and have been implemented by stretching the film around the product instead of shrinking the film around the product. And as Tom mentioned, there are some sustainability initiatives, a lot of boxes that can be checked by just looking at this process in a different way, right? Instead of shrinking it, we're going to look at it through the lens of stretch bundling now, and talk in detail of what advantages that might look like. So again, I said traditionally, I think these medium to small pet food bags are going through a loose curtain of film and being shrunk down by a heat tunnel. So by using some of the elasticity properties in the film and really going through a much tighter curtain of film throughout this bundling process, we're able to stretch the film around it and then seal behind those bags and behind that bundle. By using these elasticity properties, we're able to eliminate the need for a shrink tunnel. And why is that important? Well, for one, we're able to reduce energy consumption by not having to run a large or can be large or could be small shrink tunnel, depending on the speed of the filling line and the bundler. So in a lot of pet food factories, they could be running small bags, close to 100 bags per minute. And if you're running bundles through a machine at a rate like that, and shrinking them down, you have to run your heat tunnel at a very high temperature to keep up with those speeds, and that could lead to a lot of energy consumption during that process. By stretching the film around the product and removing that shrink tunnel, again, we're seeing some significant savings in reducing that energy consumption throughout the process. Also, by removing that shrink tunnel, we're usually resulting in a much smaller machine footprint. Why is that important? Well, there's a lot of growth and expansion in the pet food world, which is very exciting. And typically, these factory floors, every inch, every foot, every meter, is of importance. So if we're able to not only eliminate the shrink tunnel and create some energy consumption reduction, it's kind of a feather in our hat if we're also able to make a smaller machine or a smaller just a smaller size within that process. So the last point on this slide, and probably the most important point, we should maybe have stars around this one, is material reduction. So I talked a little bit about stretching that film, using those stretch properties in this film around the bundle. Well, we're also able to create a very significant material reduction in this process as well by controlling the film and really having it go through a tight curtain of film. We're able to control the film in two ways, right? That initial push through it, and then also when we're releasing film and sealing on the backside of that. It's two ways within this process, and it creates it could be upwards to 75% film reduction in each bundle, which is again very, very significant. And we've also seen in a lot of instances that in addition to the reduction in the amount of film we're using in each bundle, we're also able to reduce the gauge of the film, also creating more material savings. So everybody certainly likes to look at cost savings as some of these initiatives at a plant level, but this secondary packaging material reduction, if you think of how many pet food bags are being filled and going through bundling or even case packing equipment and then onto pallets, these are real numbers. These are significant reductions, and again, check a lot of boxes in a lot of brand owners' sustainability initiatives. So, what other possibilities do we have as we're looking at the differences of shrinking versus stretching? So, some other benefits. So we talked about how we can control the film again through this process. By controlling the film and really stretching it through that process, it creates decreased downtime. It creates a wider operational window. Again, we're really precisely controlling this film as we go through. It's done in a very precise, repeatable way. And again, we see a lot of decrease in downtime. We're removing that heat tunnel. That's just one less thing to have to worry about in reference to this process. This precise, repeatable process is really really also linked to improved bundle stability. So decreased downtime, higher operational window also leads to increased bundle stability. So we're manipulating that film. We're precisely releasing the correct amount of film, which is also giving us the ability to manipulate the size of the bundle. So if we have a bundle of pet-filled bags, maybe it's 3 bags or 5 bags or 10 bags, we can really push it through a tight curtain of film and manipulate the size of that bundle. Why is that important? Well, if we're able to consistently come up with a very tight window for the size of each bundle, we can look at the pallet patterns further downstream in the process and redesign some of the pack patterns that could create another bundle or 2 or 3 on a pallet that could also create more bags. Maybe instead of a 5 bundle pack, we can create a 4 bundle pack with a more optimized bundle pattern. Why is that important? Well, nobody likes to ship air, whether it's air in a box or air in a bundle. Nobody likes to ship that. If you're able to tighten up your bundles by stretching and doing it more consistently, you're also able to look at some of the optimization opportunities on palletization. That creates a lot of logistical advantages And we worked with many brand owners on, okay, now we have a repeatable process where we're using less film. Now we can move on to the palletization side and see what can be optimized there. Again, these are all points that typically fit with sustainability initiatives that are, again, real quantifiable numbers. So, and the last point, there's a lot of dialogue in a transition to primary packaging, right? Everybody wants to move to this mono material, recycle-ready primary package, whether that's a PE material, an MDO PE material. It could be something else as well. So as Allison mentioned in the beginning of our presentation, we also build machines that make bags. So we're working with a lot of suppliers to the pet food industry on these primary recycle-ready monomaterial bags. So we have a lot of experience in dealing with this material and everything that comes with it. And typically, these monomaterial bags do not like having heat added to them. It can distort the primary bag. It can cause a wrinkling effect on that package. And of course, if that package then gets to the store, nobody, we look at those packages. Typically, you're not going to buy a wrinkled bag or a distorted bag. You're going to buy the one that doesn't have that. So that's some of the challenges, as I'm sure a lot of people on this webinar know, when we're talking about monomaterials and primary packaging. Well, how does that relate to this? So if you're adding heat to it within this process, such as a shrink tunnel, again, you're going to see some distorting on that primary bag. By eliminating the shrink tunnel and stretching the film around it, we're not affecting or having any negative impact on that primary bag. So in essence, we're creating this worry-free transition to these recycle-ready monomaterial type structures. So that's I know a lot of the brand owners are working with the converters on okay, what brands are going to move into these monomaterial bags. What makes sense? How can we do this? You can get your bag ready to go and it checks all your boxes. But what are the impacts of that material through your entire supply chain, whether that's filling, bundling, putting it in a case, or putting it directly on a pallet? So this technology, again, just creates that worry-free transition to the recycle-ready bags in the primary package. And again, because these bags don't like heat added to them, we also have seen some sticking of that secondary film to these packages. And again, once it gets to the end user and put on the shelf, right, they're opening up these bundles. Again, they don't want any, or we typically wouldn't want to see any of that secondary packaging sticking to the bags. That's another challenge in dealing with some of these monomaterial bags. So on the next couple of slides, we've got some advantages or some examples of how we're doing this and some of the points that I discussed. So on the left side, and again, these are extreme differences here, but on the left side, you have an example of a shrink bundle. Again, bags being into a loose curtain of film being shrunk down, and it could be that there's still some air in the bag, or the heat tunnel isn't quite getting that strong, precise bundle. So on the right, again, these are stretch film now around that bundle. Again, an advantage of that too is that stretch film is always trying to get back to its normal state. So if there is some air in the bag, that stretch film is going to stretch down lower. You're not going to have to worry about that bundle ever changing. I know some brand owners have long life potentially for warehousing, and again, you're not going to have to worry about the stability of your package given the stretch film surrounding that bundle. There's a couple more advantages as well, or examples as well of these advantages. Again, because of the precision that we're able to do the stretch packing in, we can really look at those pallet patterns and really optimize them. Again, nobody likes to ship air or just loose bags, loose bundles. And it can create some logistical challenges if things are tipping over or loosening up. And again, another opportunity to just be more efficient and optimize your logistics. So here's some, I touched base a little bit on the material savings. So we've seen a lot of, we've seen a very wide range of material savings when we're comparing stretch packing to shrink bundling. So we would typically take the film off the bundle, weigh it, repackage it, take the film off the bundle and weigh it for a direct comparison. And again, it could be up to 75% material reduction depending on the size of the bundle and the product that's going into it. And again, that's quantifiable, really real reduction in film, which again is can make a big difference if we're talking about a really large facility with a large output. So I'll talk a little bit because we're machine people. I'll talk a little bit about the machine and the technology behind it. Again, this isn't rocket science. It's going through a curtain of film. So we're correlating the product, whether it's four pet food bags or 10 or 12 or whatever it may be. We're correlating the product into the right configuration. We're pushing that product through a curtain of film. But again, the key difference in this process is we're really controlling that film 100% throughout the process and manipulating the amount of stretch factors on that film. We're manipulating that as it goes through the curtain on the initial push, and then we're also manipulating that film again on the backside after the product is through the curtain and when we're sealing it. So again, by having a repeatable, complete controlled process and using that stretch elasticity properties, we're really able to manipulate the product as precisely as possible, leading to a lot of the points I had hit on earlier. So some key takeaways to stretch the impact, right? So the biggest one, like I said, maybe it deserves its own slide, is really that material savings, right? Even if you're able to save 5%, 10%, 15% in a repeatable process, that could be a huge amount of savings and reduction. And again, that's a huge discussion point in a lot of these sustainability initiatives. So again, you're also going to see a lot of reduced energy in your factory, simply given the fact you're not going to be running a heat tunnel. And all these things certainly lead to a shorter return on investment. Of course, I think we all want to move the needle as best we can in reference to sustainability. At the end of the day, these are also companies, right? We're all working for companies that it has to sometimes make sense financially. And this checks a lot of boxes in reference to not only the sustainability side, but some of the return on investment.
Awesome. If I may add, one of my key takeaways from hearing your presentation is that this is just a great example of systems thinking. I feel like in sustainability, how we drive change is we change one thing, but then there's a whole set of cascading changes that come from that thing. And so in this example, you mentioned that the transition to monomaterial is being driven by this need to make packaging, flexible plastic packaging, more recycle ready. But with that change, there are other more upstream changes that have to come, like that packaging type's reaction to heat and reaction to the secondary packaging. So it is part of this system. And so when we make one change, other changes might follow. And that was a great example.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
round of applause. Let's move into our Q&A section of the presentation. So for our audience, please go ahead and use that Q&A feature to type in any questions that you have. I actually wanted to take my moment to start us off with a question about how you help potential customers decide between their packaging options. We saw on one of your slides the little scale sample where we saw the weight of one package versus another, but I was hoping you could go into more detail about how you direct customers towards the right secondary packaging.
Sure, absolutely. So, and again, I'll reiterate this. This isn't for every product. This certainly isn't for every facility. So we try to understand, the product itself, what makes the most sense for that product. If that leads us to stretch packing, then we would typically take that product with the customer. We would invite either the film supplier, the customer, or both to our facility, and then we would weigh the secondary packaging, whether that's corrugate or shrink, rebundle it, repackage it, reweigh it, and just get that dialogue going of, okay, this is what we're seeing. Unfortunately, this product might not work for this process. It's too sensitive to be pushed through a tight curtain of film. These might be alternative solutions. Or hey, I think we've really got something here. Maybe we would want to see a little bit more different characteristics in the film performance, or tell us some of the challenges we might not know about further downstream. How are you palletizing? What else can we dive into? So we try to be as hands-on as possible in reference to that. Of course, the best way is to actually do it and see it. So we do also a lot of demos, and a lot of people want to see it as a large scale all the way through their through their supply chain. So there's also been instances where we'll ship a machine to a potential customer, and they'll make their own bundles, and then they'll ship that product across the country and back, and we'll kind of deal with the results and kind of see how that works. So it can be as simple as an upgrade to an existing machine, or it can be as hands-on as, okay, let's ship this machine to your facility.
Great. Tom, did you want to add something?
No, when we engage with customers, we really want it to be a collaborative process, and I think Derek's statements are right on point. When we're going to talk about secondary packaging specifically, it's really, we're going to have more questions and answers on the onset, just about what are your goals, what are you doing today, where do you want to make that impact, and then we move on from there.
Okay. Could you, because in the poll we learned that a lot of the audience here is using the corrugated cardboard, could you just talk through the trade-offs between that type of secondary packaging and the stretch method?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and again, every product has its own fit for where secondary packaging, the best secondary packaging for it, and we love our boxes in the U.S. for sure. So there are some advantages, of course. If you weigh the couple pieces of film versus a corrugate blank, you're going to probably have some logistical savings just in shipping weight. Of course, the cost of that carton blank is going to be significantly higher than a couple pieces of film off of a film roll. And at your facility, you're also going to have to store a lot of empty boxes. Depending on the range of your product, you could be putting them in small, medium, large boxes, depending on how many different SKUs you have and configurations. Obviously, you're going to have to warehouse or store all those empty boxes. If you're using a bundler, and it could even be a shrink bundler, it doesn't necessarily have to be a stretch bundler. You're going to be warehousing significantly less space, just because you're getting a lot more bundles per pallet on a pallet of film versus a pallet of corrugate, and that's a very, very big figure if you look at that. And again, that's very significant from a warehousing standpoint. And again, not every product can go in film, but that's that's a big advantage from a film versus corrugate standpoint.
Okay. We have an audience question back comparing the shrink wrap to the stretch wrap. Could you comment on the difference in the recyclability or the end of life outcomes of those two different options?
Sure. So we're machine guys. We're not necessarily material guys, but we're using traditionally what's being used in secondary packaging from a shrink and stretch standpoint is a LD, low density PE film. These films are typically recyclable or recycle ready films. We can't speak of where they're going after the bundles are broken. I think that probably another webinar on that topic. But there should not be any difference between necessarily the film structures being recyclable or non-recyclable. So I believe you're using probably 75% of the same resins on a shrink bundler versus a stretch packer. You're just using a little more elasticity properties in that stretch film to get that stretch throughout that process, which again is leading to a lot of the advantages in the points that I talked about. But the film itself should be recycle ready for both options. Again, it's not this isn't the special unique film. As Tom mentioned in one of his slides, this is a very commodity based area amongst all facets of secondary packaging, not just pet food. So it's pretty cost sensitive, which certainly we're aware of in some of these transitions as well. The stretch does give us an opportunity to use more films that have a higher PCR content because the secondary packaging, nobody it isn't as scrutinized as much as the primary packaging. If there's cloudiness in the film or if it's not perfect, that's okay. It's more looking for performance versus versus shelf life. I know there's some hesitation on or some challenges on using high PCR content in primary packaging for those reasons. And we're a little, maybe we know too much because we're also building bag making machines. So we have a very unique perspective on these mono materials because we're working with a lot of converting companies on coming up with these mono material bags and sustainability initiatives because they're getting pressure from the brand owners and their customers as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought up that point, but go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I just wanted to expand a little bit more. I saw the question in the Q&A, and thank you, Jonathan, for posing that question. There was a component about our, or he was looking for comments on compostability or compostable film structures, and really glad you brought that question up. I have some experience in my previous life in packaging with compostable films, and composting as a way, compostable packaging really leaves the circular economy, but it doesn't go to landfill. It's diverted from landfill and it goes into industrial composting. And this is really a growing trend in packaging. My opinion, I guess, is that secondary packaging would be a great area to try to see more use of compostable films. I mean, because these films don't need to be there's nothing exotic about them. There's no introduction of inks or coatings or anything like that. They're the bio materials. They're made from the biomaterials, and I really think there could be a huge opportunity for compostable films to be used in the secondary packaging process. And also the fact that, you know, generally secondary packaging is handled between manufacturing and retailers. It kind of takes the consumer out of the mix, and, you know, consumers, um, you know, they're very well intentioned for, you know, to recycle as much as they possibly can, or to try to put things. We're seeing compost bins show up at all sorts of different areas. Um, uh, in the consumer spaces, but that also is a great, it's an opportunity for contamination to get into some of those composting streams. So what I could envision, you know, and maybe this is a blue ocean thought, but, you know, start using compostable films for secondary packaging where retailers have control of it, you know, before it gets to the consumer space, and it can really help to also address another area that's huge when we talk about pollution and sustainability is food waste. You know, that's as big or bigger problem than plastic waste or plastic packaging. And the combination of those two things, you know, there could be an opportunity there to really sort of drive those materials into the compost stream, in the combination of the food waste, which the pet food industry is not immune to food waste. There is food waste. There's food waste in manufacturing. There's food waste from expired product. But the combination of those two things, you know, could be a nice feedstock stream for industrial compost. Just a, like I say, just a thought, but I mean, certainly, um, you know, compostable films could be used in these secondary packaging processes. And the fact that they don't have to be printed, or, you know, there's no marketing, there's no branding, there's no coatings or anything, um, could be a valuable opportunity to try to drive more compostable packaging materials.
Thank you for addressing that. Yeah, compost, I'll just add one quick note. It's a great circular solution as long as the material actually gets composted. And I think that in the United States, especially, we have a bit of an infrastructure problem because those industrial sites do exist, but I think we could use a lot more of them as we start to make more and more compostable stuff. So always check locally before you compost or recycle something to make sure that it is actually accepted.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, and you hit on it, Allison. I mean, when a lot of these materials, the plastic materials that are being used are recycle ready. The gap is the infrastructure to collect and recycle these plastic materials in a meaningful way. That's what I think a lot of brands are waiting for that to happen. Um, you know, I don't know when it might happen or on a grand scale. It'll probably take some sort of legislation to really sort of start to move the needle on the collection of plastic packaging and the recycling of it. But secondary packaging, as Derek pointed out, was, you know, that is a great application for films that utilize PCR or PIR, because you just don't have to worry if there's gels or inclusions or some, you know, minor defect, visual defect in the film. It doesn't matter because it doesn't come in contact with the consumer.
Yep. Yeah, a great opportunity there. I wanted to make sure that we touched on the very top of the waste hierarchy, which is like not using something at all. Could you give an example of a primary packaging format that maybe wouldn't need secondary packaging at all?
Yeah, we typically see that in large pet food bags, maybe 40 plus pounds, just because of the pure size of them. They're typically filled, sealed, and then just put directly on the on the pallet. So I would say that is also common in most industries. The larger the product, the less of the need of that secondary package to keep those products either together or apart from one another. So I would suspect that nearly every, I don't know what the cutoff is, probably 30 to 35 pound pet food bag is typically just going directly on a pallet, skipping that that secondary box or bundle process, and then going to some type of palletization, stretch wrapping direct.
Awesome. We do have something in our Q&A about this cuboid packaging format. I don't know if either of you have seen that on the back end of our Zoom. But I guess maybe let's talk about just like innovation in the space. Have you heard of that particular product that was mentioned in our Q&A? Or do you have any other comments on just kind of like where the industry is going?
Yeah, so I think we touched again. We're a little bit biased because we're also building a lot of bag making machines, and every brand, every converter is kind of working together on what what their mono material is going to be, whether it's the material itself or a lot of people are looking at optimization of sizes of those bags themselves, and also transitioning out of some some materials into different materials. So we see that a lot. There's a lot of activity certainly around that. People are moving from paper into PE. People are moving from PE into woven polypropylene. People are trying to essentially get more product in a smaller bag. People are looking at redesigning that bag itself. So again, a lot of the objectives on the converting side are to really come up with whether it's material or more efficient ways of getting that product into the bag, but also maintaining the performance, which is a big challenge, or can be a big challenge with some of these materials. So we see that a ton in the space, which is why a lot of this can connect to stretch packing, because it doesn't really matter. The stretch packer doesn't care if it's a paper bag or a plastic bag or a square bag or a rectangular bag. It's always going to be able to bundle that bag in a precise way by not having to add heat to it.
Right. Thank you so much for all of these thoughtful answers. I guess if anyone is like typing their last question, I'm going to stall a little bit here, but I don't see any more questions for our audience, and you have answered my question. So let's go ahead and move to close. I would love to hear from both of you just your closing thoughts for our audience. Derek, let's start with you.
Well, again, I think one takeaway or just a general takeaway is really maybe looking at secondary packaging as an opportunity for a lot of sustainability initiatives, and certainly we've had a lot of success with this, working with brand owners as well. But with the nature of secondary packaging being sometimes commodity driven or really cost driven, it's not as exciting to talk about when comparison to primary packaging. So we felt this would be a good opportunity to maybe educate and share a little bit of what we've been doing and how we've been able to help our little part in pushing all these sustainability initiatives.
I disagree. I find this very exciting. I think the opportunity to include recycled content, reduce materials, innovate in the space, very exciting. So that's my takeaway, is I'm excited about secondary packaging.
Well, good. We are too.
Yeah, why don't you give us your closing thoughts?
Yeah, thanks, Allison. Yeah, my closing thoughts are just, brands, challenge your suppliers, challenge your suppliers like B&B. We want to collaborate. We want to collaborate in a way that maybe we can get to some mutually inclusive results. I mean, there's a lot of great ideas out there about how we can move forward with a more sustainable path. It's great when we can check multiple boxes at the same time. I mean, we there's sustainability and there's costs associated with that. You know, it's nice if we can come together as partners and collaborators to really sort of move the needle forward. And I know, you know, this, I'm sure everyone on this call has heard this 1,000 times, but you know, sustainability is not a destination, it's a journey. And we just need to continue to collaborate and work together. And if you have ideas, or if you have new ideas that may need to incorporate some sort of a machine component, as you pointed out, we're machine guys. You know, we don't really, you know, we have our standardized machines, but we are very open to new processes and customized applications. I mean, that's honestly, that's probably more where we excel is into the new innovative types of technologies. I mean, and we could have a whole discussion about, you know, what we see for the future for machine development and things like that. And, you know, we're looking at everything from automation, inline QC systems, AI. You know, AI is going to play a role in our future. There's no avoiding it. I mean, that's going to be something that we're going to see playing into packaging systems and manufacturing systems. So yeah, that's my thought, is just, you know, challenge your suppliers. And by that, I mean, you know, partner and collaborate on innovation and moving the needle forward. My other last thought would be to just wish everybody on this call a happy Labor Day weekend coming up. We got a big holiday weekend. It's I guess it's the unofficial end of summer, but
Yeah.
I look forward to the change of seasons. That's something that I enjoy.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of reactions from the audience on that one, and I'll respond to that. So awesome. Well, it sounds like you are up for the challenge of innovating together along the supply chain. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge in this secondary packaging space today. There is a link in the chat to learn more about B&B, and thank you everyone for attending. This was really great. I appreciate your time.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Allison.
Thanks everybody for their time, and certainly thanks to the PSC team for allowing us to share and collaborate.
Of course. And happy long weekend to everyone in the States.